Welcome one and all, it's time for a Kings of War battle report. Extra hot, extra spicy. Abyssal Dwarfs versus Orcs. Now, before we fly into the battle report, a couple of things to bring up first. First of all, there was a previous attempt at this battle report, so if you were in the audience and witnessed the first attempt, then you will remember that some of the pictures weren't there. I have since found them all, so we're going to do it again, and the old one has been removed from the internet forever, so there's no evidence that I attempted a battle report with half the pictures missing. So, if you could just keep quiet about that one. Next, on a serious matter, if you look in the description, there is a link to a fundraising campaign, and Mark, a prominent and valued member of the Kings of War community, recently suffered a house fire and lost, amongst other things, all his armies. So there is a fundraising link down there. Mark is a member of I think he's on the Kings of War Masters Committee, and he has organised events as well as playing in a lot of them. I've played against him a few times, but against his rats quite frequently. So anything that people would like to donate down there would be very helpful. Last time I checked it was up to like £3,000, so that's very nice. Next point, I am organising some events. I'm running some events in October in Nottingham, Kings of War and Deadzone, and I've put links in the description for those. So they're on I think it's the 19th and the 20th of October. I think that's the weekend. So the Kings of War is on the Saturday. It's going to be 2,300 points and 24 spaces available. At the TSN Arena, we've got the full venue, so all the tables, including the downstairs as well this time, so higher player capacity than last time. And same for Deadzone as well. So if you're interested in any of those, there's links in the description. And finally, before we actually get to the battle report, the content on the channel, I'm not going to be doing any other battle reports other than the second game that I played during this Kings of War session. There won't be any other battle reports for a couple of weeks because I'm going in for some minor knee surgery on Wednesday, so I won't be able to play any more games for a week or two. It's estimated to be a quick recovery though, so it shouldn't be too long for you people that are starving and frothing at the mouth for the non-stop tide of content that flows out of this channel. So, let's leap into the battle report. 2,500 points. This was supposed to be kind of a practice warm-up game for Battle Masters, which I was going to attend, but obviously with the impending operation, then I had to pull out of that event, sadly. But I did get these two practice games in first. So 2,500 points, Abyssal Dwarfs and Orcs, and it's very similar to the kind of lists that I've been running this year with the Abyssal Dwarfs, lots of speed. Initially, I took it as a kind of a challenge to make a list work that wasn't just golems, and then after I'd painted all the models, miraculously Mantic decided to make the fast Abyssal Dwarf units good, because they were not very competitive, or at least some of them weren't. And it was very nice surprise that after I'd painted them, suddenly they became competitive. So I'm going to get through the list first of all. You can see obviously a couple of army lists there, but first look at this. Played this game at Mantic HQ, and there's my opponent, John, with his orcs there. So, into the lists, the Abyssal Dwarfs. We have 2 regiments of Immortal Guard with the Infernal Wardens upgrade. It may be the most must-take upgrade in Kings of War at the moment. If you can think of another one, let me know. But for only 15 points, you're not having to sacrifice your defense to get Crushing Strength on this unit. And it just makes them significantly better. I always rated them anyway. Just for 15 points, it's a very inexpensive upgrade for them. Then we've got 4 troops of gargoyles. Arguably one of the best chaff units in the game, being able to fly. They're very fast, and they're expendable. If they happen to survive anything, which is rare, but if they do, then they do have regeneration 4+ as well. So if they do survive, often they can flap away and maybe even survive the whole game if they survive that first stiff breeze that ordinarily kills them. John making a comment on other John's facial expression there. I think he's just trying to look menacing before the battle. Then we've got 2 regiments of Abyssal Half-Breeds, one with Blessing of the Gods, one with Brew of Sharpness. So because they're only regiments, then they're good candidates for these upgrades that become more expensive when you put them on hordes. So if you compare them to Grotesques, the similar sized unit, similar number of attacks of Grotesques, they're a horde, whereas the half-breeds are a regiment. So you get better value out of putting the expensive upgrades on the half-breeds. They have 16 attacks, hit on 3s. One of them is now hitting on 2s, and the one that hits on 3s is now elite. So hitting on 2s with Crush 1, Thunderous 1, and Vicious. Very dangerous, hard-hitting units. Then 2 hordes of Grotesques, who are almost as dangerous. They don't hit quite as hard occasionally. Sometimes they do, because they do have additional Thunderous Charge. But it's the hitting on 4s that usually lets them down a little bit. But they are more survivable, though. They have higher nerve, and they have better defense. I've given 1 Liliana's Tear, just because it was a cheap 5-point upgrade and had 5 points left in the list. So that ignores Brutal and Dread and Shattering. And the other one has Mead of Madness, because they're one of the slower units in terms of the fast wing of my army. So it gives them that bit of wild charge. Then we've got 3 Abyssal Half-Breed champions, some of the best individuals in the game, dare I say. And they don't have very high nerve, but outside of that, they've got Crushing Strength 2, Fury, Regeneration, Vicious, 6 attacks on 3s. They're just pretty tasty all round, but for only 145 points as well. Significantly cheaper than Bracky Barker, who is also in the list. But these guys, if necessary, they can be used as chaff, but also it's difficult for the opponent to lock them out of what you want to charge. They're cavalry, obviously, so they're going to be able to see over a lot of infantry units and get to stuff that the enemy might be hiding, because they're nice and fast and nimble individuals, of course. But you can usually combo charge them in with the other units, because they don't take up a lot of space, so you're going to be able to fit them, a lot of them, on a frontage. There are risks associated with charging more than one of them into combat at the same target, because obviously if they kill one, they could overrun into the next with them being individuals. So you've got to be careful with that and use them wisely, but inspiring as well. And this list has no shortage of inspiring, because we've also got Bracky, who is like an even tougher version of the half-breed champion, higher nerve, more crushing strength, and Dread, and very inspiring, so plenty of inspiring from them. And then there's a Grotesque champion with the Blade of Slashing, which is a good little upgrade to have on any unit that's got a small number of attacks, but those attacks are very devastating, because missing just one of them makes quite a big difference. So Blade of Slashing, very helpful there. And it's the kind of thing I've run in the past on Troll Bruisers. Any unit that doesn't have many attacks, you want every single one of them to count. So lots of inspiring, lots of speed for an Abyssal Dwarf army, and what we're up against is quite a slow Orc army, actually. If you just cast my eyes down here, there's only 1 flying unit that's speed 10. There is a small amount of speed 8. There are some fight wagons at speed 7. Everything else is 5 infantry, apart from the wizard. So, 3 regiments of Morax, which are the Orcs that have more attacks. You can see they've got 20 attacks for a regiment, which is a lot. They hit on 3s as well, and Crushing Strength 1, so they're pretty tasty. And they can't be wavered as well, so that's quite a big deal for them. Then 2 units of Long Axe, 1 regiment and 1 horde. These have Phalanx, which is a significant rule to have in this particular battle, because a lot of my army is cavalry. If we look back here at my list, we've got cavalry, cavalry, large cavalry, cavalry heroes, large cavalry hero, and the gargoyles fly as well. So most of my army is not a fan of things like Phalanx. So 2 units there that could be difficult to crack, because obviously if you charge in with cavalry into Phalanx, then you're -1 to hit, and you're not going to get any of your Thunderous Charge either. A regiment of Great Axe, so they're slightly harder hitting with Crush 2, but only 12 attacks as compared to the Morax. They are a bit cheaper though. Then 2 Orkling regiments, so just very cheap chaff, even cheaper than Gargoyles, but half the speed of Gargoyles. So I think Gargoyles give me the chaff edge in this game. 2 regiments of Fight Wagons, 1 with Pipes of Terror for Brutal, and 1 with Healing Brew. And they can't be wavered either, which is quite important. And when you look at something like this, you may be comparing it to like chariots. But when I look at this, I see that it's not reliant on Thunderous Charge at all, and it has Crushing Strength as its source of damage. So, normally, if it was a chariot unit, you would want to hit them first and shut down their Thunderous Charge. But hitting these guys first might not even make too much difference to them. They can't be wavered, they don't have Thunderous Charge to lose. So, pretty robust to chaff, I would say. And anyone like a half-breed champion charging in there certainly is not going to kill one of these in one round, and would then be in a difficult spot because they do have 18 attacks on 3s with that Crush 1, which is quite terrifying. 2 War Drums, which have Rallying 2, so boosting the nerve of all the nearby Orc units. A Crudger on a Gore with the Mournful Blade, which applies the Duelist special rule, which is going to be useful against my list because I've got so many individuals. We have a Flagger on foot with the Loot of Insatiable Darkness, which provides Bane Chant. And if that's not scary enough already, we also have Morax Mansplitter, who has an Aura of Thunderous Charge to Berserker units, which is the Morax. So, potentially, if one of these Morax units charges in, that's 20 attacks hitting on 3s with Crushing Strength 1, an additional Thunderous Charge 1 provided by Morax Mansplitter being in Aura range, and then potentially another Crushing Strength 1 from Bane Chant 2 on the Flagger. So on average, that's going to succeed most times you use it, that Bane Chant 2. So, I don't have anything above Defense 5, so some of these units could be going into combat with wounding me on 2s for most of my units, which could be quite terrifying. So we'll see how that goes. We've got Whip the Outcast, who has a lot of spells: Heal, Hex, Lightning Bolt, and Weakness. So it's a good little assortment of spells there. Heal, obviously useful, and I think Whip gains dice for the spells based on Orcs being nearby as well. So potentially can go up even higher than that. Weakness could obviously be useful. There's a decent amount of defense 4 and 5 in the list. It's mostly 4, there is some 5, and a little bit of 3 on the Orclings. So weakness could be useful. Lightning Bolt, my gargoyles are immediately terrified of any lightning bolt because that's probably enough to kill them in one hit, so I'm going to hide my gargoyles based on seeing the enemy having any lightning bolt at all until I want to get them killed, and then they'll just fly out and accept their fate. Hex won't be very useful because I do not have spellcasters in this game. Then there's a Crudger on Winged Slasher, which is a big flying titan with boots of striding to have Strider for a turn. So it's control, and you can see we've got these little X's marking out the 6 different table sections that you want to have. And generally in control, I always say the places you want to contest are around these X marks, because then at the end of the game you're in prime spot to leap into any one of 4 table sections from your position. So you can see my army's kind of set up with that in mind, half of it over here and slightly smaller half of the army over here. My opponent has got a big, really scary, hard-hitting force of Morax and the Crudger on Slasher in the middle there, so they could go in either direction. The Long Axe with Phalanx are over on this side, so I don't just want to charge and hit them in the front. So you can see, once they were deployed, I've put my infantry over here, because they will actually be able to hit them without worrying about Phalanx. So both my units of infantry on this side to match up there, and I have to put some cavalry over here, because that's most of my army. So there is a unit of half-breeds there, and grotesques as well. On this side, we've got one of each of those as well. The half-breed champions, we've got one here, one here, one here. We've got them turned sideways so that when they do their free pivot for being an individual, they get a little bit of extra distance in the first time they move. And we've also got Bracky here as well on the right. My plan for Bracky, he's very reliable at dishing out damage. He hits on 3s, he's got 6 attacks, and he's got Crush 3. So what I want to do, ideally, with either Bracky or some gargoyles, because I want to kill these units, and just charging my cavalry into the front is not a good way of doing that, because I'm going to be -1 to hit, no thunderous charge, it's going to be a long slog to get through them, so something is going to go around the flank. It's most likely to be Bracky, because he's in a position to do it, using this rock as cover to get round the side there. and gargoyles can potentially do that job as well. But I'm a bit hesitant to do anything with the gargoyles early to get them in position for flanking, because whip is right there, and if gargoyles poke their head out, they're just going to get lightning bolted off the table immediately. So my chaff are going to hide until I want to drop them in front of enemy units, really. You can see that we've already started the first turn here when I've taken the pictures, because the orcs have already started advancing. So there's my left flank force with the grotesque champion there as well, who is very handy for dishing out some reliable pain with nimble as well, and being height 4, very useful, seeing over existing combats. Over on this side, you can see the 2 regiments of Immortal Guard. And my opponent has all the fight wagons and the Orclings on this side, along with the Great Axe on a hill, and a War Drum and the Flagger with Bane Chant. 3 units of Morax, look at that human arm in action there. 3 Morax regiments, a War Drum, the Crudger on a Gore. There is Morax Man Crusher there, and the Crudger on Winged Slasher, and then the Long Axe and Whip on this flank. In this bit of difficult terrain as well. So, some close-ups of the orcs, very nicely painted. There's a mixture of Mantic and old GW orcs in here, so very cool. On to turn 1 for me then. So that was the orcs' first turn. And my first turn, you can see that Brekkie is putting out the world's least effective trap right there, because he's put himself in the front arc of this horde of Long Axe. And if for some reason they decided it was a good idea to make a hindered charge into Brekkie Barker, exposing their flank to my entire army, I would be very surprised. So they're not likely to do that, but I'm in a good staging post there, so Brekkie in the next turn can get round the back. I'm trying to keep Brekkie away from this guy as well, this Crudger on Gore, because he's got the blade that gives him duelist, so double attacks against individuals. So I'd rather have him fighting one of my regular half-breed champions than Brekkie, who is much more valuable. So Brekkie is staying away from him, so that's why he's on this flank expedition. Try and get round the back or the flank of the Long Axe. Because if he can get round there and charge them, he can just keep chipping damage on them each turn, and they can't afford to turn around and fight him, because they're unlikely to kill him in one round, and then they're going to get hit with other units in the front, which would then be the back if they've turned round. So they would just have to eat those attacks, as long as I've got units threatening the front at the same time. So everything moving up. I'm keeping out of range of the big flyer though. Don't want to be hit by that on any of my weaker units. And side view there. So you get a good gauge of the distance between the units here. Cinematic shot of Brekkie. My model that I use for Brekkie, it's a half-breed model with some of the parts from the new... What's the kit even called? It does Decimators and Black Souls, that's the one. The Black Soul kit. So it's got one of those heads, a shield arm, so I had to chop off a bit of the side of the model, of the half-breed model, and then the axe head is from the Black Souls kit as well. Turn 2 for the Orcs. We're not seeing any combat yet. You can see dice have been put down to mark out charge ranges. There's only so much you can do because I've got more speed. The fight wagons are equal speed to the grotesques, but I have superior chaff. The Orclings are providing a good screen though, but they won't block, for example, the grotesque champion because he's nimble. So my opponent playing it a little bit cagey so far, waiting until next turn to strike possibly. And also, you'll notice in a moment, after these lovely cinematic shots, this one I think became the thumbnail, you'll see that the winged slasher, from this position, I was quite concerned about it. So I'm thinking my opponent has some kind of scheme in mind for this model. Because where it is right now, it's preventing me from advancing too far beyond my line because I can't afford anything to be flanked. So, for example, I've got my grotesques out of its range, and it doesn't have the distance to charge them. I've had to keep all my units back because I just don't want to be hit in the flank by that thing. So, the fact that it now moves over here, if it was an intentional ploy to get me to attack this turn, then it's going to work, because as soon as I see that thing not being a threat, not only is it good for looking for flanks, but flyers obviously also can hop over your own units and make multi-charges quite easily. Even if another unit in front of them goes in first, then they can easily reach the spot they need to touch on the unit because they can fly and they're nimble. So great for multi-charges, and you don't want to get hit with multi-charges after you make that first initial contact. So the fact that he's looking over there now means I am going to start throwing units into combat now. Safely though, I'm not just going to go willy-nilly all out. Turn 2 for the Abyssal Dwarves. So here's what my plan is. Bracky has made his way around the back, so he's looking into the flank of the Long Axe. I've put a half-breed champion between these two units there, so the Long Axe Regiment and one of the Morax. So he can't be charged by them because he's out of both of their arcs. Be charged by the Crudger, who has Duelist, so he may well die then, but I kind of want the enemy to be a bit closer anyway, so I can start unleashing my charges there. But really, he's just being a nuisance. He's forcing things to deal with him that maybe quite like the position they're in here, and it would prevent them going after anyone else, because there's no fight broken out here yet. So what they would probably like to do is join in and help out this carnage here, but if they have this tempting little target there, it could draw them away. And if Morax Mancrusher wants to join in, some of these units would have to move out of the way, probably forwards, which means I could then charge them. Got one unit of gargoyles just hanging back because I'm going to need them at some point. These two are hiding behind the grotesques because Whip is there and I don't want them to get lightning bolted. You can see over here that I sent gargoyles to lock down this one fight wagon unit and put one wound onto them. The grotesque champion killed the war drum right there and then turned round to get this fight wagon unit in its front. And the grotesques killed one of the Orcling units. The other ones will clearly go into the flank, but hindered Orclings in the flank aren't that terrifying. Half-breed champion and half-breed regiment, this is the one that hits on 2s, both of those into the front of the Morax. They do 1,000,000 damage, okay, by that I mean 17 damage, and then roll a double 1. So, that could be a bit unfortunate, because if you're going to throw a half-breed champion in with another unit, if you don't kill what you're charging, they can become a bit of a liability because their nerve isn't that high. So if those Morax kill the half-breed champion, they would then overrun into the half-breed regiment, and that would be bad times. So that double 1 could be quite significant. We'll find out though. You can see the other half-breed champion hiding there so that these individuals can't charge him because they can't see him. What I wanted to do was, if the half-breeds had killed this unit, which obviously they should have done, they would have turned to face this way a bit. And this half-breed champion, I think I was planning to go sideways that way, so that the fight wagons would have to make a hindered charge into the half-breed champion, and then if they overrun far enough, which would be like 3 or 4 inches to reach the grotesques, so you're just putting another step in front of them that they have to pass before they can actually hit the grotesques, and they're still going to be hindered on that as well, even if they do get through him. So obviously that plan can't be enacted now. Whoever's watching this live, by the way, feel free to drop some comments in there if you've got any thoughts as we go. And you can see here Bracky's position, he's getting ready to strike. Turn 3 for the Orcs. So, the fight wagons back into the gargoyles, of course. Fight wagons and the Crudger into the grotesques, which I'm not too displeased about, because this guy doesn't have a huge amount of attacks, and he's not using his duelist against this unit, obviously. But if it tips them over the edge into dying, then obviously I won't be too pleased about it. The Morax countercharge into the half-breed champion, which is definitely the move there, because then you can hopefully kill him and then overrun into the other unit. The Orclings will flank charge in a moment, but it's not been done yet. Morax Mancrusher charges into this half-breed champion. The other units just reposition themselves a bit. These guys don't want to thrust themselves into combat yet, and maybe rightly so. I don't think this unit could see the flank of the half-breeds. I think they were just out of visibility. It looks close, but I'm sure we would have checked it because that's an obvious thing that my opponent probably would have been looking at. Then we've got Orclings in the flank there, as I said. And all the other units just hanging out, and you can see that the winged slasher has turned around to face the action again now. So It could have been bad times. If he'd been facing this way last turn, I would not have committed as much, probably. Because if he was here, facing this way, there would have been multi-charges galore going in with him featuring in them, which would have been bad news. But as it stands, I got that one turn without having to worry about this guy, so I felt that was the good time to commit. Whip does some damage to Bracky with a bit of lightning bolts, which isn't very scary. Gargoyles get killed by the fight wagons, as you'd expect. The Grotesques become wavered on 10 wounds from all these 3 units, which is fine. Now they're going to be able to strike once more and hit something else. You can see that the Grotesque Champion is also looking into the flank of this unit, so you'd hope he would be enough to kill them. Half-Breed Champion taking damage from the Morax. But, what's this? It looks like a double 1. He had only taken 9 damage, so yeah, that is a true double 1. So, double 1s on both sides of the combat here. Morax Mancrusher does 2 wounds to the Half-Breed Champion over on the right. And that's it. So, this turn, coming up, I'm going to be closing the distance now. Because all my units survived through that turn, so I'm feeling pretty good about this side. But I'm feeling better about this side, because the fact that this went horribly wrong with a double 1 on the Half-Breed Champion means that this unit they'd probably ideally like to concentrate over on this side, because the other units behind are kind of jammed up right now, apart from the flyer. So the enemy have clearly been backing away on this side. They're not that eager to engage. They have more faith in this side with the amount of units they're going to be sending there. And this is kind of just a delaying tactic. So, turn 3 for me. Bracky goes into the flank of the long axe and does some good wounds, and I throw some gargoyles into the front of them. And the reason I'm doing that will become clear when I go to a wide shot in a moment. The Grotesques on my right flank charge into this Morax unit, and my Half-Breed Champion hits them in the flank as well. They take some damage, but not that much because it was a hindered charge into phalanx, so it's not going to do too much. But you'll see that I've moved up my Mortal Guard into charge range and the Half-Breeds into charge range. So if the Gargoyles weren't there, that unit could potentially charge in one of these units here. So Gargoyles, just pinning them in place so that next turn I can do a triple charge with Bracky. I send in my other unit of Gargoyles from the right flank into the front of this Morax unit to lock them down for a turn, because otherwise they would be hitting me. And Half-Breeds and the Half-Breed Champion that got a bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card this turn, they killed the Morax unit that they should have killed in the earlier turn, and they just make sure they're not going to be flanked by anybody. The Grotesques and the Grotesque Champion murder the fight wagons, and the Half-Breed Champion goes into the Crudger with the Duelist blade, but double 1s him. He'd only taken 4 damage though, so it's not a real double 1. And that's how we're looking. So, the Grotesque Champion has turned to face the fight wagons, which means there's a chance he might get charged off the hill. But killed a couple of decent units there, fight wagons and Morax, and got into combat in these other positions. And I'm very confident that this flank is going to go my way. Lock down these Morax. So it just depends what these reserve units can do now that the gaps have been opened up a bit. They might be able to find their way in. Turn 4 for the terrible, vile Orcs. A lovely upside down picture. I have not much going on there. The Grotesques, hold on, let me see how much damage. Yeah, so they've not been hit yet. That waver there should have been taken off. Now it's still there from last time. So the Winged Slasher goes into the front of the Grotesques now, with the Orclings continuing in the flank. We've got Morax steaming through into the Half-Breeds. We've got Fight Wagons and the Great Axe into the Grotesque Champion, which could be painful. We've got the Long Axe into the Half-Breed Champion, along with Morax Mansplitter, which is a risk, because if they don't kill him, then they're going to have their flank turned to the Grotesque Horde now, which would obviously be game over. But the amount of damage they're on, they might be thinking it would be game over next turn anyway. Whip is behind this unit hiding. And what's this? Gargoyles, double wand. So double one is obviously contagious in this game. Gargoyles have now been the latest recipient, which doesn't greatly affect the game that much. But with a control scenario, anytime you have gargoyles surviving, that's going to be useful at the end of the game when they can dive into a table section. The half-breed champion does get killed, and they're able to turn back to face the grotesque horde. The Morax one-shot my half-breeds, which is sad. And this is where I realised the true power of the Morax, because they were within the aura range of Morax Mansplitter, so that they gained the Thunderous Charge as well, so that's how they were able to chew through them. And then... hold on, let me go back. Okay, that one was the Gargoyles, but that's the Grotesques. That's the half-breeds that get killed there. So we've lost both of those units. And we've also lost the Grotesque champion there. And the Grotesques. So 4 units on this side of the table, all dead in one fell swoop. And it went from looking decent on this side to this is the enemy's side now. The Orcs just own this side of the table. So I'm going to do my best to replicate that in my favour on this flank. Into my turn 4. So you can see that... who was there? This guy. The Crudger. My half-breed champion finishes him off and then overruns out of the charge arc of the Slasher. Over on this side, the other half-breed champion, who was he fighting? He was around here. I think he just runs away, potentially, rather than actually fighting anybody. I think it's this guy. Yeah. Then we've got Immortal Guard into Morax Mancrusher, 4 wounds onto him. Grotesques finish off a unit of Long Axe there, and then I throw in everybody into the big Long Axe horde and clear them out as well. So this flank is now mine. So we've got a flank each, and it's just a question of who can strike most decisively along this centre line now. And who's got more scoring units left for the scenario? Let's see. So I've got a unit of gargoyles. This one has stayed down here because I didn't need to throw them in, and if they stay alive, then that's just going to give me another unit to score with at the end of the game. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scoring units left. My opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the Orcs have got a slight edge via having the War Drum. In terms of how much unit strength is left, I think it's about equal, just by eyeballing it. So it's still anyone's game. Turn 5 for the Orcs. Morax and Morax Mancrusher charge into the Immortal Guard. Other Morax are on their way over here. And a nice upside down picture of Whip, who charges into my half-breeds there. Everyone else is just lining up, waiting for next turn to strike decisively. And the Great Axe into the half-breed champion, who was out on the left flank on his own. They do go over the hedge though, so he might live. Let's see. Okay, so the Immortal Guard get killed, and this is when I'm thinking, yeah, I really need to not underestimate Morax ever again, because these guys are devastating. When you combine them with Morax Mansplitter. Okay, so this is the situation I'm presented with for the next turn. And what am I going to do? Because these 2 units are too far away to fight. Bracky is as well. So the half-breeds, I have to leave something in this corner, so they might as well countercharge into Whip and try and deal with that wizard. The gargoyles are going to have to throw themselves in and lock someone down. Potentially the flyer, because they can definitely reach him. And if they can do 1 wound, that'll stop him flying, which is nice. The grotesques can charge in and kill the Morax in 1 go, potentially. That would be nice if they could do that for me. Grotesque champion can stop this unit of Morax, so that I can advance with the Immortal Guard as well. So it's looking a little bit dicey. Although over on this side, this half-breed champion survives on a waiver, so he is going to have to countercharge the Great Axe. So that's what's left going into my turn 5. So here we go. The half-breeds take care of Whip. Bracky sets himself up for next turn. The half-breed champion goes into the Morax. You can see that the grotesques do some decent damage to the Morax regiment, but only roll a 3 on the nerve check, which is sad, because it wasn't a huge number required to kill them there. Half-breed champion does some damage back to the Great Axe, but he's obviously going to die next turn. My other gargoyles decide they don't want to throw themselves in, they are just going to hide, and flying away as far as possible, putting themselves on the point at which the two board sections meet, exactly on the halfway line. So at the end of the game they can just decide which side they want to be. And I've just seen a whoop in the chat. We've got Florence in there. Good evening. And not a very devastating turn 5 in terms of units destroyed, but plenty of damage done. If the Grotesques can survive a turn, you can see that my gargoyles did actually get the charge into the winged slasher, and I think they did 1 wound. Yeah, there you go. 1 wound, so gargoyles did their job locking that unit down. They are throwing themselves away though, because obviously the gargoyles are going to die and they can no longer be used to hold the table section at the end of the game, but I thought shutting down this flyer was a bigger deal, because otherwise he could combo charge into the Grotesques and almost certainly kill them. So I've got all the hard-hitting units around here tied up. He's still going to get hit by the Morax, who will be under the benefit of Morax Man Crusher as well, which is sad. And also, the standard bearer there with Bane Chant can potentially add that onto them as well. So it could be a devastating turn, but 20 attacks and the nerve, I have got them inspired by Bracky as well, so I'd be quietly confident of surviving a round there. On to turn 6. So the War Drum goes into the flank as well, just to add a bit more. There's some more attacks. Although what that does mean is that when these Morax go into the half-breed champion, if they kill him, they can't overrun. And you can see that they do go in, but so do the fight wagons from the left flank as well. So he's going to be very dead. And the Grotesques die. So they took 13 damage, and then successfully, despite the inspiring, that was enough to get rid of them. So, I'm running out of units, but it's not all over yet. The gargoyles that were locking down the Crudger die as well, so they're regretting their life choices. They could have flown away since the Grotesques died anyway, and that's who they were trying to protect. And yes, it's not looking great. I've got these 2 decent fighting units left and Bracky. And this half-breed champion dies as well. So, the overview is, my opponent has this table section with the Orclings. These guys can... I think they back up a bit after combat, so they're in this section. My gargoyles have got one of these 2 sections locked down, but the flyer goes sideways after combat as well, and ends up in my central area. So there's no point in the gargoyles being there, because they have lower unit strength than a Titan, who has 2, they only have 1. So they're going to just hold this section, that's going to give me 1 point. My opponent is currently sitting on 4 points. So, I can't do much about that in this turn, because the only way I could physically do that would be if I killed, let's see, if Bracky were to kill a unit, and the half-breeds were to kill a unit. So, I think the only way they could do it is if they kill the hero there, Morax Man Splitter. If they kill him and then overrun into the Morax and finish them off, and Bracky kills a unit, that would give me this section. Because if I get both these units in there, but that would only put me on 3. So I'm going to need a turn 7 probably. And if there's a turn 7, will the winged slasher be willing to leave its post of scoring 2 points to go and kill something, or will it stay there? Because that's a big risk abandoning this area. Would you then send another unit in there? I don't know if these guys would make it because they're on an obstacle and the Orclings are facing the wrong way. So it would look dicey depending what I can get killed in my turn 6. So here we go. Gargoyles just staying where they are. The half-breeds do manage to kill Mansplitter, but then they overrun 1 inch and fail to make it to the Morax. So, wow, wow, wow. Although Bracky does his part of the plan, he kills the other Morax unit, and the Immortal Guard kill the War Drum. So, had I managed to make a 2-inch overrun here and killed this unit, then that would have put me in a pretty decent position heading into turn 7, I think. I don't know if these fight wagons would kill a unit of undamaged Immortal Guard in 1 round, and you can't even waver them. So I think it would be looking quite good. As it stands, the Orcs are in the lead. So if there's a turn 7, If you were the Orc General, what would you do? Would you charge Morax and the Slasher into the half-breeds? Would you just charge in the Morax and hope that they're enough? You don't have Mansplitter anymore, so you're losing out on Thunderous Charge. You do still have Bane Chant, so you would hope that would be enough to get rid of them. The Fight Wagons aren't going to kill anyone this turn, unless they have assistance. These two units are locking down areas of the table, so they don't have much purpose if we get into turn 7. So if you do kill one of my units, though, then the Orcs would win, because I just don't have enough units left to secure table sections. So what would you do? Would you charge in the Winged Slasher with the Morax in a turn 7, or would you just stay there and hope they can do it on their own? Because if they don't do it, they are certainly going to die next turn. And then, potentially, you could try and position this unit so that if I kill them, I then can't get a unit into this table section. Which is something that is possible, maybe? Let's see, because if you just charge straight into them, you end up there, I would fight you in the same position, and then if I were to go sideways after combat, I don't know if I could physically reach this area to take it off you. So yeah, the fact that I didn't kill that unit this turn, it's not looking great, even if there's a turn 7. Ideally, I would have liked to have killed them, given this guy a serious dilemma, because he's not going to kill a unit of half-breeds, probably, on his own in one round. He could do, but it's not likely, because Bracky is there to inspire as well. So if I'd killed them, he would then choose, do I fly away and claim a table section, or do I go all in and try and kill something? Do I double up and try and take out the Immortal Guard? Because then that could be the play there if these guys had died, because I would have to leave the half-breeds in this section to take it then, which means I wouldn't be able to win. So, very interesting. As it is, a 2 is rolled, so there's no turn 7 anyway. So the Orcs win 4 points to 3. But very, very close, very exciting game. We both had our dice mishaps early on over on this flank. The Orcs ended up taking this flank, I took the other flank. And then reasonably even forces left at the end, because Bracky is quite a strong character. The Orcs have got the slight edge on what's left, especially in terms of scoring units, which is obviously how they're winning right now. But pretty close, and the next game that we play, which I will report on at some point this week, is the Pillage scenario with the same army lists, so we'll see if I learn to respect Morax, and we'll see how that one goes. That will be, let's see, which day is that likely to be? I've got my minor knee surgery on Wednesday, so I probably won't do a video that day. Could potentially be later in the week or next weekend, perhaps. I've got a couple of other videos I want to do as well, while I won't be able to do battle reports for a couple of weeks. And let's see, what's on the agenda? I'm going to look at the new Warhammer Dwarf stuff, because I've just placed a substantial order of dwarves, and my bank account was braced for impact because classic Warhammer dwarves are my weakness, because I've already got a vast army, but there's certain things I don't have which GW just brought back, so I bought loads of those obviously. So I'm going to do some kind of video on that. In terms of Kings of War, one more battle report to come, as I said, and the next tournament, because I've had to back out of Battle Masters because of this operation, then the next one I've got on the books is Clash of Kings in September. And I'm not sure what I'm going to take, because I've been to so few events this season, because there just aren't enough around Nottingham, then I'm definitely not going to qualify for the Masters. So I don't have to worry about Masters points with the Abyssal Dwarfs, because I'm not going to get best in race. So I could take the Night Stalkers to Clash of Kings. I could go nuts. I could take any of my armies, really. I've also got Goblins and Undead and Halflings. And yeah, what would people like to see? Which of my armies do you think I should take to Clash of Kings? Do you think I should take Abyssal Dwarves? And if so, should it be this kind of list? Or should I go back and take a golem-centric list like I did last year? I'm obviously having a lot of fun playing this kind of list, but Night Stalkers, I put so much work into building those giants that it would be a shame not to get them out at the biggest tournament of the year at some point. And you can make some pretty tasty Night Stalker lists at the moment, I think. The Shadow Hounds are really good now. Shadow Hulks are definitely not optimal, but I do have 3. So I would probably have to run 3, just to make the coolest looking army possible for Clash of Kings. So I may do that this year. I may go for not a fully ultra competitive list, because like I said, 0 chance of qualifying for the Masters this year due to lack of event participation. And hopefully Mantic start running more Kings of War events actually at their HQ, because there just aren't enough in Nottingham. I'm doing my bit to run some Nottingham-based events, so hopefully other people out there will as well. And Deadzone also. So for anyone that missed the start of the video and has maybe dropped into the live stream now, I'm running some events in October, Kings of War and Deadzone in Nottingham. There are some links to the Facebook pages in the description for those if you want to have a look at them. Also down there, if you're also just joining us, there is a fundraising page for a valued member of the Kings of War community who lost pretty much all his stuff in a house fire. So anyone who wants to donate to that, that will be appreciated, I'm sure, as well. And let's see, what's likely to be the next event I can actually physically make it to, because I've already had to back out of Battle Masters this weekend. So I'm aiming, there is a Warhammer event in a couple of weeks, so hopefully I'll be back on my feet fully by then. That would be nice. And then I've got plenty of events through August, and then into September we've got Clash of Kings. I've got another Kings of War event booked in for November as well. And other than that, I need to fill up the tournament calendar. So if anyone knows of any Kings of War or Deadzone events, within striking distance of Nottingham preferably, then let me know about those. Other than that, I think it's about time to wrap this one up. If you're still watching, and you're watching this live, then I believe there is about to be a live Bad Squiddo stream very shortly as well, in about 10 or 15 minutes time. So you should definitely go and watch that. And he's running a Kickstarter at the moment, which seems to be doing alright. And you'll probably get some excitement and War Games industry gossip and all kinds of joyous conversation topics in there, and probably guinea pig updates as well. So, all that remains to be said at this point is, caught you there, didn't I? You thought I'd forgotten to plug all my social media and my various fundraising outlets, didn't you? Well, I totally didn't forget to do that. So, don't forget to check out all the links in the description, social media shenanigans, there's Twitter, Facebook group, Discord server, and all that good stuff. And obviously, why not pledge like at least half your life savings to this channel? Because then I can pay to attend more events and buy more armies and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Give me all your money. Not all of it, though, because I've just been telling you about the very important fundraising that's going on in the description. There's a link to that as well. So I'm sure you can spare some of your money for that, rather than just funneling it all directly to this channel at the moment. There are people in need out there. So all that remains to be said is, good night out there, whatever you are.